Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Kis Uni Video Series. I'm your host, Farid, and today we have a very special guest here with us, Mohammad Hassan. He has studied from NAST University and has a lot of credentials to his name. We'll be getting all into that.
Well, thank you for having me on, Fareed. This is actually the first podcast I've ever been on, so it should be quite interesting. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, likewise, we're thrilled to have you on board.
So I'm currently working at Draper University, which is a startup accelerator based in Silicon Valley. It's one of the oldest startup accelerators. It was founded in 2012, and it sort of focuses on early stage startups. So I've been working in the programs team at Draper University for about it's been 1 year and 3 months. So that's been a very interesting experience. And you could call it a sort of dream job for me, but there was an interesting journey that sort of led to it. So I think I will go into more detail during the podcast. So that's what I'm doing right now. As far as my background is concerned, I was born and raised in Islamabad, did my O&A levels from here, and then I did my BBA degree from NUST. I graduated in 2020. And since then, I've been trying out a bunch of different things, failed a few startups, tried out a bunch of different jobs. And yeah, at the moment, this is where I am in my journey.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. So, what was your experience during your OA level years? Like, what were your subjects? Um, did this passion for, entrepreneurship and stuff start then, or did it, happen later on in your life? And any exciting things that you were part of during school?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. I've actually been thinking about it, and I didn't realize that my passion for entrepreneurship did start very early. So let's just begin with the subjects that I took. I was kind of, I gravitated towards science subjects from the very beginning. That's what interested me. I was the sort of student who was so I was a decent student, but studying never really interested in me that much. So I kind of, in my earlier classes, I'd kind of just study a few days before the exam and kind of make it through. And I sort of did the same thing throughout A levels and O levels. You could say that I was a decent student. I wasn't, a topper or anything of that sort. But yeah, I gravitated towards science subjects because my initial plan was always to become an engineer. I think that's something that a lot of Pakistani students can relate to, where your parents just want you to be an engineer or a doctor. For me, it was sort of, my own goal as well because I liked science. So I kind of assumed that I'd be good as an engineer, but clearly, like that was a terrible assumption. Nobody really guided me. So, anyways, yeah, I took my I, I I took science subjects in O levels and I kind of did well in O levels. And then in A levels, once again, I took physics, maths, and chemistry. My goal once again was to become an engineer. I kind of did terribly in A levels, and the reason for that was that I underestimated A levels, and I also got into you could say the wrong crowd. So we, partied a little and we kind of went off track. So that was a rude awakening for me. But yeah, I'll get into that more. As far as extracurriculars and whether I was interested in entrepreneurship from an early age is concerned, I actually have an interesting story to tell. Um, so I used to bring lunch to school. I was one of those kids. And I remember that my mom used to make me these sausage sandwiches. All right. And because you keep having them every day, you kind of get tired of them, right? So I
Yeah.
thought, I'm what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start selling these. I'm gonna start auctioning my sausage sandwiches. And by the way, this is in like sixth grade or something. So I started auctioning my sausage sandwiches and then go to like the highest bidder. So like people would bid in the class. They'd say, okay, I'll buy it for 90, I'll buy it for 100, which by the way, in that time was a lot of money. And then when I'd get the money, I'd sort of go to the canteen and get whatever I wanted. So I think that's where my sales and entrepreneurship ability sort of, started, even though I didn't realize at that time. But I was just doing it to, get food. So, and as far as extracurriculars are concerned, I was always really into sports. I actually thought for a while that I'd become a cricketer. I used to play cricket quite seriously. even hardball cricket. But then, it's Pakistan. There's some limitations with sports.
Yeah.
If you want to make sports, you kind of have to invest everything into it. And
Yeah.
my family just wasn't too keen about it. So kind of ditched that idea along the way as well. But yeah, that's sort of my ONA levels journey. One thing that I'd say that now that I look back in hindsight, so during my ONA levels, like I was scolded a lot because I wouldn't study that much. And in hindsight, I actually think those were the best times in my life because of the fact that I enjoyed a lot and I played a lot of sports and I did study. It's not like I was
Mm.
failing everything, but I didn't, it wasn't my first priority. It wasn't something that I'd always do. So just in hindsight, I'd say don't fail, like get decent
Yeah.
grades, but also don't make grades like everything that you're working
Mm.
for. Uh, in the grand scheme of things, they don't count for that much. So yeah,
Yeah. No, I can relate as well because I think during your O levels, there's like so much to explore because you've like, I would say you haven't really entered the world, but you're like getting a good taste of, what's out there. And that's where you begin to explore, yeah, this is my field, this is my field. And, it brings out what you really like, whether it's public speaking, whether it's, something towards the business side. So yeah, like people should enjoy and make full use of their O level years and opportunities. So, you
for
went
sure.
on to study from NAS. Do you remember anything about the admissions process and how was like getting into NAS? And what were your sort of how was your time at NAS? Like, was it really academic intensive in terms of the opportunities, and how did it prepare you for your professional life?
Okay, so I have a bunch of interesting stories about NUST and how I got into the university. So as I just told you that I wanted to be an engineer, right?
Yeah,
And I ended up doing a business degree. So that in it of itself was just luck, you'd say. But what happened was that as I mentioned, I didn't do too well in A levels, and then post A levels, I started preparing for the entry tests at
yeah,
different universities. I gave my SAT. I had a pretty good SAT score. At that time, it used to be graded out of 2400. So I had a pretty decent SAT score. I could have gotten into LUMS as well to maybe in like economics or something. But at that time, I was like laser focused. I was like NUST engineer, mechanical engineer. That's what I want to do. So I kind of started preparing for the NET. That's the NUST entry test,
yeah.
and I gave it 3 times, I think, and I do not remember passing 110 or 120. So I was like, I mean, it was also sort of an unconscious thing where I really didn't want to do it. Like I all my life I'd wanted to be an engineer, but as I was getting closer and closer to it, I was realizing, this is not for me. Um, so interesting story. I was actually on the website, the NET website, and at that time there was sort of an option to select the entry test you want to take. So there was like a tick box next to the engineering test and the BBA test, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd already given the engineering test twice, and I was like, you know what? ये BBA का test भी है नीचे. So maybe, it's just like 6,000. Maybe I should just take it. So I just ticked it. And what ended up happening was that I went to give the BBA test without any preparation. It was just like English, maths, and like IQ. And I got like a really good score. And I was like in the top 10 of the list that comes out. So I was like, you know what? This is really easy, like compared to engineering. Like I'm failing the engineering test and I'm out here giving the BBA test, and I'm getting in without preparation. So that's it. I'm doing BBA then. So that's kind of how that went. And in hindsight, if I had some career guidance or if somebody had talked to me, I would have perhaps made a better decision, done BBA from somewhere else if that was, what I was going to do. But yeah, that's how I ended up at NUST. And once I was at NUST, I was actually like sort of demoralized because I wanted to be an engineer, like thoda thoda, and I got into BBA. So I was like, maybe this isn't the best place, but the environment was good. So you asked about the environment. So there's a misconception that NUST is like super strict, which I can tell you it's simply not true. There are some things, for example, at NOS Business School, you kind of have to wear like a dress shirt and a dress band to university. But I think that's actually a good thing in preparing you for
Yeah.
the corporate. So, people are like, oh, that's super strict. I want to show up in like slippers and stuff. But like, I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of get used to it. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. And then apart from that, the environment is super open. And the academics, um, as far as the business degree is concerned, if you're coming from an engineering background, it's super easy. Because a lot of the subjects are quite literally common sense, to be honest with you. And you can prep, comparatively less and still get good scores. And I have a funny story to tell. So I mentioned I was a decent student, but um, my goal was to make money, right? Because I didn't
Okay.
have a lot of money. I come from like a middle class family, and there was a bunch of stuff that I wanted to experience, but I didn't have money. So I kind of just winged my first semester similar to my A levels, and I just gave the exams, and I got like a 3.5 or 3.6 GPA. Okay, because there were subjects like English,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, that's decent. But then one day on my phone, I get a notification that your check of rupees 12,000 is ready, so you can collect it from the NUST office, the administration office, your scholarship check. And I was like, hold on. You're getting paid for this? You're getting paid to get good grades? And I was like, this is amazing. Like you can get paid for this. So then I started studying. Then I actually started studying because there were tiers. So from 3.5 to
Okay.
3.75, you get 12,000. 3.75 to 3.9, you'd get paid like 15 or 16,000, and 3.9 to 4, you'd get paid like 18 or 20,000. So I was like, okay, if I'm getting paid, so I might as well study. So then I started studying, and I graduated with a pretty decent GPA. I think it was 3.86. I had the silver medal in the batch, and the motivation
Right.
behind that silver was literally to get money. And in hindsight, I was kind of an idiot because I could have just gotten a part-time job and made like 40K a month easily. But you know, uh, that's how life works. It was an interesting experience, and NUST has a bunch of different societies and extracurriculars. I mean, the opportunities are endless. I feel like it's all about your mindset.
Yeah.
A lot of people, yeah, a lot of people who get into NUST, they come in with this mindset that it's not as good as, let's say, LUMS. But if your mindset is positive, then you can sort of see those opportunities and then you can take them. So I think that's the advice I'd give. No matter what university you're going to, always have that positive mindset. Don't listen to the people around you. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, यार ये क्या university है मतलब ये हम किधर आ गए हैं हम किधर फंस गए. That's all. To be honest with you, you'll go to any university, the majority of the people will be complaining about something. Don't listen to them. Just focus on your own thing. Identify opportunities and grab them with both your hands. So yeah. Apart from that, I kind of launched a brownie business when I was in NUST to sort of
Yeah.
make
You
money.
were the co-founder of Nut and Butter, right?
No, so Nut and Butter was actually a business that I started after graduating. Uh, when
Okay.
I was in when I was in NUST, I co-founded. Well, I didn't really co-found it, but a friend of mine had a brownie business in Fast. And I spoke
Okay.
to him. I told him, NUST is a huge market, so maybe you should hand over like the NUST side of things to me, and then we can sort of make money together. So that was the idea. It was called Crownies, and I kind of went to different schools with like samples, and I convinced the canteens. So each school has their own canteen, so I could kind of
Okay.
convince the canteen owner to keep the brownies. They were really hesitant, but I was like, no, it's like great homemade stuff, really good quality. Um, and I remember I used to go out and hand out free samples to people like I didn't know. And as an introvert, like you might not believe that I'm an introvert, but as an introvert, that was really challenging for me. So
Yeah.
that's something that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No.
but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Even like that introvert side, because I also used to be one, but I like forced myself to do all these MUNs and stuff. So I feel like during this time, like this is the time to actually, start breaking your social barrier and talking to people. I feel like that's really important.
For sure, you need to like constantly challenge yourself. Especially I remember in A levels, I used to just play chess all day. Like I disliked speaking to people. I had a group of like 3 or 4 friends, and I would just like play chess all day. But then in university, I kind of realized, that's not how it's going to work.
Yeah.
I need to talk. I need to get better at communicating. And it's not that I was socially awkward. I think a lot of introverts aren't socially awkward. It's just, it's something they don't like to do, so they don't do it. But then you have to realize it's super important, especially in your career.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Nust in a nutshell. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to your nut and butter journey.
Yeah,
So
for
how
sure.
was that? You were the co-founder, if I'm not wrong.
I was the
So
co-founder.
what was the vision behind Nut and Butter, and what were some of the problems you faced as like a co-founder?
Sure. So Nut and Butter came about because both myself and my co-founder were really into fitness. We were into working out. And peanut butter is sort of like a staple if you're looking to
Yeah.
gain muscle, right? And we just started out in our careers. I was like working at a marketing agency. By the way, I wanted to be a marketer for a large portion of my career. So I was working at a run-of-the-mill marketing agency, getting paid like 25K. So I wasn't like rich by any means. And my friend wasn't either. He was in customer support. And all the peanut butter that was available at the time was imported. So it was like 1,000 rupees for a jar. And like it was just like normal peanut butter. And we'd be like, man, like I want to make my shake, but like I don't want to spend so much money on it, right? So we were like, Pakistan grows peanuts. So why don't we start making our own peanut butter and selling it, right? And at that time, there were very few organic peanut butter companies and Instagram pages. So we kind of just got together, and I was like, he was actually my best friend. He's my best friend from childhood. His name's Faris. So I was like, you know what, Faris? I'm gonna get a blender, and we're gonna get some peanuts, and let's see if we can make peanut butter. So that's how that started. So we just would make peanut butter for ourselves and kind of like put it in our shakes, and it was really good. Like it was good homemade peanut butter. And we were like, wait a second, like we could like monetize this, we could like sell this. We could like go out to gyms and like start selling it. So I actually like developed a brand, and I wait, give me a second.
Yeah.
So I actually developed a brand and a whole like I don't know if you can see, like there's a
Yeah.
tagline on it: smooth and creamy, and like there was chunky, and we kind of branded it towards gym enthusiasts and like fitness enthusiasts. And it was like very cheap because obviously it was like we were getting the peanuts in bulk and we were making it at home. So it was like compared to imported jars, you could get it for like 400, and imported jars would cost like 1,000. So it was like quite a lot cheaper. And then so as a co-founder, my job was to actually make the peanut butter
Okay.
and yeah, and handle the marketing, branding, that side of things, like the social media.
Mm.
And then Faris, because he had a car at the time, he was handling logistics, delivery, that side of things. So we sold it for a while, and then we kind of interesting story. We both got two jobs after that. So even though it was something we wanted to do, it sort of started to die down because it was really hard because we'd make,
Yeah.
I was peanut butter on the weekends, and like it's hard to do. And especially it's a very logistically intensive
Yeah.
business. So then we got two jobs. We realized the money is better there. And then we nut and butter kind of died out. But yeah, that's that story. So as a co-founder, I think it's really important for you to delegate specific responsibilities. You can't have overlapping responsibilities. That's where some of the problems arise, where one co-founder is like, "Oh, I think I can do this better." I think you're so you need to delegate responsibilities from the get-go. The Each co-founder should do what they're really good at, and they should just stick to it. Obviously, they should discuss and like kind of come up with ideas together. But when it comes to execution, it should be like separate. That's my experience. And then apart from that, like things should be communicated very clearly. There should be no, areas where there's something's vague. Everything should be so super open, super clear. And actually, at Draper University, we talk about how identifying a co-founder is like identifying a life partner.
Yeah.
You should put a lot of thought into who your co-founder should be. It shouldn't just be somebody who you just kind of met at an event or a conference and you just decide to start a business. That's not how it works. It should be somebody you trust, somebody you relate to, somebody who's your friend. Those things are very important. So yeah, I mean, if you don't do those things, a lot of problems are going to arise. It's going to be a tough journey.
Yeah. So let's move on to your time at Career Launchpad. So, what are basically the qualities you feel are really important for the professional field and in a workplace? And,
Mhm.
how can you keep on, like you said before, challenging yourself and getting better at whatever you do?
Sure. So for a bit of background on Career Launchpad, um, I actually was so I wanted to be a marketeer at the start of my career, and I got a marketing job. And what had happened was that I'd interned at the NIC, the National Incubation Center in Islamabad, during my degree. So I kind of knew what the NIC was. But I wasn't interested in working there. I wasn't interested in I just thought it was a cool place with like founders and startups and stuff like that. And then while I was working one day, I actually got a WhatsApp message from a class fellow of mine, and he sent me a PDF document, which was a terrible slide deck. But in hindsight, it was just bad. Like it said career launchpad, launch your career, but it was like a bad PDF. But I thought, you know what? It says it's going to be held at the NIC, so I remember the NIC, and there were a bunch of cool people over there. So maybe I should look into enrolling into this program. At that time, Career Launchpad was a 6-month cohort. So I was like, you know what, I'll work 9 to 5, and then I'll invest the rest of my time into Career
Mhm.
Launchpad. And then what happened was that I joined Career Launchpad, and I really, really liked the people there. I mean, one of my mentors, Pervez Abbasi, Mahad might have spoken about him. He really helped me, see my potential and understand that I was probably, I had the wrong direction. I was in the wrong place. So when I started working with those people, I actually felt alive. And what happened was that slowly I started to invest more and more of my time into Career Launchpad. And by the way, I was not working in the team. I was a member of the cohort, of the first cohort. Um, but I volunteered. Any project that would come up, I'd say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And that's a really good skill to grow your career, is
Yeah.
saying yes. The ability to identify opportunities and projects, and even if you don't know how you're going to do it, just say yes and then figure it out, right? Like that's what your mentality should be. So with Career Launchpad, I started saying yes to a bunch of different projects, started helping out the team. And then I remember 5 months in, I was super done with my marketing job because it was a terrible job. मतलब मेरा काम ये होता था कि मैं लोगों को DMs पे reply करता था social media पे. So that's how I'd get paid, like
And
30K a month.
obviously, when you compare to what you were doing after that, I'm sure, uh,
For sure, yeah. I mean, compared to that, Career Launchpad seemed like the perfect place to be, and it was.
yeah.
So anyway, I kind of spoke to the program manager at the time. I was like to him, you know what? You match my salary, and I'll quit right now. Like I'll quit today if you just match my salary and you hire me. And he said, you know what? We can't really do that because we've got a set quota of people we can hire. I was like, and then he was like, okay, you know what I can do is I can sort of hire you as my own intern. I'll pay you your salary, but you won't be an official employee of Career Launchpad. So that's how I kind of got into Team Up in Career Launchpad. Um, and then what happened was that after the first cohort, I kind of started, I went in full time. I dedicated a lot of time to the program, and then I managed the next cohort. So for the second cohort, I was the program manager. I kind of led it, and that was a great journey as well. I met some amazing people, and yeah, the career launchpad was a super. I mean, in your career, I think there are going to be moments where you're going to have to take a leap of faith,
Yeah.
not only in your career, actually, during your education as well. And I think Career Launchpad for me was that leap of faith. I realized that marketing was not what I wanted to do. And I took that leap of faith. I went into program management and operations, which was something that I had no idea about. Um, and it really worked out well for me. So, yeah, that was Career Launchpad. So, what else did you ask? You asked about challenges, right?
Yeah.
Or learning?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, the challenges were in the beginning, the challenge was that I was doing two jobs. So I was like very burnt out from my first job, and then I'd have to give time to Career Launchpad as well. So the challenge was just time management to a great degree, and then multitasking. Um, a great way to focus on, deal with those challenges is to use a lot of softwares that are available now, softwares and platforms. Just sort of have your work, cleaned out and set these specific hours for specific tasks and don't procrastinate, get to them straight away. Be disciplined, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. That's essentially what it's about. And then apart from that, a big learning curve for me was I went from marketing into program operations. And program operations, for those who don't know, is very customer facing. So it's
Yeah.
sort of like where you're always talking to the program participants. There's a lot of communication that goes into it. So I mentioned I was sort of an introvert. So that was a challenge area for me, just trying to, because I was the program manager and it was my job to inspire everybody, right? And you
Yeah.
can't do that without communicating well.
Mhm.
So that was a huge challenge for me. And then apart from that, just trusting in the process. So I think one thing that uh, fresh graduates should focus on is not the company that they want to start off with. And it's not even maybe um, the area that's very important. So for example, it could be the area that you choose, marketing, sales, etc. In the start, it's not as important. What's more important is that you should surround yourself with leaders and bosses who you really look up to and who you'd like to be like in the future. And
Yeah.
then just trust in the process. So you should have mentors wherever you're working. And
Yeah.
if you're seeing that there's like a lack of mentorship where you're working, it's probably not the best place for you to be in. So just find a place where the people you're working with you look up to, and then trust the process, learn from them, be patient, and then good things will come to you eventually. You'll grow. So I think that's the advice I'd give.
Okay, so I think like one something that really stands out from our conversation is that not everything can be calculated. Like as you move forward, like you said, you need to take a leap of faith. And
Yeah.
regards to that, uh, what advice would you give to people who are either fresh graduates or even people who are, just starting university? Any particular advice you would give to them about how they should move on? How can they sort of find their potential niche and just take that leap of faith?
Yeah, for sure. That mentality to be able to take risks is sort of so I've interviewed some very successful people. I've spoken to some very successful people, both in Pakistan and in the US over the past 2 years. And one thing I've realized is that what's common between successful entrepreneurs and also people who are very successful and they're working in companies like Google and Facebook is the entrepreneurial mindset. And the entrepreneurial mindset, to kind of, summarize, is the ability to identify opportunities and take risks. It's a risk-taking mindset where everything's not certain, but you kind of calculate a few of the things and then you go into it. So you just don't dive into it head first
Yeah,
without like thinking. That's not how the approach should be. But you need to calculate, you need to take risks, and you need to take the lead on things.
yeah,
That's sort of the advice that I give to students as well. Don't just go into stuff like head first without thinking कि ये बस मुझे समझ में आ रहा है, I'm just going to do this. Think about it, do your research, and kind of form a basis for your plan. But then
definitely.
after that's done, yeah, after that's done, after you've done your research, after you've kind of looked into a bunch of things, now it's time for you to take that leap of faith. So whatever sort of doubts you have, or this, because you always have doubts, right? There are
Yeah, you
always
do. We always.
yeah, for sure. There are other options that seem really enticing. So just kind of go into it, and just go for it. And as far, and I mean that kind of sounds like pretty simple, just go for it, but it's a lot harder when you're in that moment,
Yeah.
right? Like you start overthinking, you start like procrastinating, you're like, oh no, like where will I be? But I think for fresh graduates, especially, your people play it too safe. That's what I've noticed. And I myself, as a fresh graduate, was playing it too safe. Like people want to work in like the safest jobs. Like they want to work at like Unilever and like P&G and like like the super safe, super cliche jobs. Although like the first 5 years of your career, that's where you can take the most risks,
Yeah.
and that's what you should. So the advice I'd give is to try out a bunch of different things. And also, apart from your work, meet new people, go to events, go to conferences, explore new areas, talk to people who are doing different things. That'll help you sort of, open your mind and identify those things. And that's the same advice I'd give to students who are in like A levels going into uni. um, you need to like experience a bunch of different things so that the
Yeah.
more you experience, the more you'll be able to understand what's better for you. um, Even during university, it's sort of up to you. You should like experience as much as possible. So yeah, I know we're a bit short on time, but I think that's how you sort of identify your niche. And then once you're in your niche and you've kind of understood that, this is what I want to do, it's just hard work. It's hard work, it's discipline, it's hours that you put in, it's self-improvement. I mean, I remember working 18 hours a day. I had two jobs, but I was in the place I wanted to be in, and I was super focused. So I was like, whatever, like I can sleep, later on, when I'm rich. But find your potential niche. That'll take a while. You'll have to do a lot of searching. There'll be a lot of failures. I failed like 3 startups, and I worked at like 3 or 4 jobs that I realized were terrible for me. So you're gonna fail a lot when you're finding your niche. But then once you found it, you just go like, you invest everything into it. And discipline and self-improvement. Self-improvement is very important. You can't be stagnant. You need to improve every day. Even if it's just, it can be something very small. Like it could be like just, oh, I didn't waste an hour today. I wasted 20 minutes. Like small stuff like that, but just keep tabs on yourself, keep improving, and
Yeah.
that's how you're going to grow your career. Yeah.
Yeah. That was actually some really great advice. So, to wrap this up, thank you so much, Mohammed, for taking out time and being here. We really appreciate it. And we hope
No,
that
yeah.
the people seeing this actually put this advice into action.
Mhm. For sure. No, I mean, I'd love to give back to, you know, and help out people who were in the same position I was. Perhaps if I'd had a mentor when I was in university, I
Yeah.
would have failed less. I would still have failed, but maybe like not as much. So I'm more than happy to give back. I mean, your community can connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'm happy to help however I can. Happy to give more of my time. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Allah Hafiz.